Anchors away and drama inbound. It's the weekly Helm report, and I'm First Mate Steph, your cruise correspondent with a flair for facts and a nose for nautical nonsense. This week, we're going to cover 2 weeks worth of news. Captain Dan and I have been traveling so much lately, so I apologize for missing last week's Helm report, but let's go ahead and dive in before the tide spills the tea. We're going to start off this week with news that's affecting many of the cruise lines. So, there is a new Chinese port fee targeting U.S. flagged vessels. And it has begun reverberating through the cruise industry with at least one liner rerouting to avoid the multi-million yuan charges. So the Riviera, a 1,250 passenger ship operated by Oceania under Miami-based Norwegian, has dropped Shanghai from its Asia itinerary after opting not to pay the new special port fee. So the vessel departed from Seattle September 18th and was due to arrive in Shanghai on October 15th, but instead diverted to Busan, South Korea. Under the new Chinese rule, the Riviera would have faced about a 11.67 million yuan or 1.64 million USD for docking in China. The policy announced Tuesday by China's Ministry of Transport requires ship linked to the United States to pay special port fee starting immediately. The charge is 400 yuan per net ton, increasing annually to 1,120 yuan per ton by April 2028. Each vessel will be charged for a maximum of 5 voyages per year, with the fee levied only at its first Chinese port of call. So, I know that I looked at a couple of itineraries for Asian cruises, and I think that we're going to see several of these change, right? So like Shanghai is a pretty common or popular port of call, and I think that just based on how insane this is, or not insane, just it's a lot of money, right? They're not wanting to pay it and they're not wanting to pass it on to their passengers. So I think we're going to see a lot of changes coming with that. Along with that, we are keeping an eye on Hurricane Melissa right now. So it's going to hit Jamaica. It looks like a Cat 5 hurricane. So obviously our thoughts and prayers are for the safety of all of those that are in its path. You know, we living in Florida, you know, hurricanes are a big deal, especially when you're on an island like that. So, you know, I'm sure we'll see a bunch of diversions and stuff like that to get out of its way or to change their ports of call. So I hope that everybody is safe with that. And now let's dive into cruise line specific news. So like I said, this is going to be covering 2 weeks worth of news. So we do have actually quite a bit. And really, this past week was a little bit heavier than the previous week. So let's start with Norwegian. So they have gone paperless. So as of October 13th, the line's longtime printed freestyle daily is now digital and won't be placed in your staterooms any longer. Guests can now view activities and dining options and updates through the Norwegian app or on the stateroom television. So you still can get printed copies at the request by guest services, but they are not just going to be handed out in your room every night anymore. The Norwegian Epic has recently, it was this week, they rescued 63 migrants from an overcrowded sailboat on the Ionian Sea, so over in the Mediterranean, so that is pretty great. I am very happy to hear that they were all rescued. Norwegian has alerted guests that starting January 1st, their cruises to Hawaii will be taxed the transit accommodation tax, so usually this is done on hotels and stuff, but is now moving to cruise lines, so that levies an additional 14% on their cruise fares. So book guests are reporting additional taxes on the cruise fares as low as $50, but $500 and higher. It's based on the overall cost of their cruise, plus how long it spends time in Hawaii. So I saw this come out last week, and people are upset. I mean, anybody's really upset. So like, I read one agent. They had a couple that was booked on Norwegian, and it was, I want to say their cruise was like $14,000, and they were going to have to pay this tax now that they weren't planning on. And there is no anything coming from the cruise line because this isn't technically their fault. This is just what it is. So people are pretty upset by that, but again, this is what we're seeing now with taxes. You know, we're seeing, like I mentioned earlier, with in China and now Hawaii. So we're going to see the costs, I think, continue to rise in that aspect. I will say that right now we're seeing a lot of really inexpensive fares, and that is, you know, cost of living's going up, and so people are kind of holding back on vacationing and stuff. So they're trying to lower their pricing to get them on board. So it's something to watch, though, that the additionals that are coming out now. And then on Tuesday, the Norwegian Jewel was heading from Barcelona to Miami. It spent 10 hours circling, looking for a missing passenger off the coast of Portugal. So the overboard emergency signal happened around 2 a.m. And search and rescue efforts including like the Portuguese Navy and stuff. They were all out there. They were out there for 10 hours. They were eventually called off, and unfortunately the passenger could not be located. So just be careful when you're on a cruise ship, because like it does take a lot to fall off, but it can happen. So moving over to Carnival. So Carnival is celebrating their 25 years since they first started sailing out of Galveston. Congratulations to them. They have also stood firm on their dining room rule. So there have been some passenger complaints, and Carnival's John Heald he's really good about going on social media and trying to address complaints. So like recently he talked about the desire to have more of the adult cruises, but so he went on to talk about the dining room. So Carnival has stated that, and this is most cruise lines, if you're 5 to 10 minutes late to dinner, that's fine. When you have a scheduled dinner time, you need to be there on time. They understand that sometimes, like, oh shit, you're running late, whatever. You're finishing getting ready. Maybe you were at a spa appointment or something. But when you show up to dinner, and let's say your dining time is 5:30, and you show up at 6, 6:10, 6:15, they're going to turn you away, right? Like, go to the buffet at that point. You had a time, you're not there, you're not eating there tonight. And because it puts stress on the wait staff, on the kitchen staff, because once you finish, you have a certain amount of time to eat, and then they have to turn that entire dining room around and make it look brand new. So they are standing firm on their show up on time or go eat somewhere else, which I can see and I appreciate, right? So just remember that if you're going to have a not my time dining, then you need to be there on time. And then Carnival is bringing back year-round cruises from Mobile, Alabama, starting May 27th on the Carnival Valor. Moving over to Royal Caribbean. So the Serenade of the Seas has just launched Caribbean cruises from Cartagena and Colón now through April 2026. And then they've also announced that the new Legend of the Seas, which is going to be another big boy ship, will have a 2-story casino. This is a first for Royal Caribbean. And then the big story from Royal. I think this was like the big story of the cruise lines, probably this month. So TikTok strikes again. So 2 teenagers have filmed themselves climbing on their balcony railings, walking back and forth, being dumbasses. I mean, I can't use any other word for that, right? Like, that is so stupid. And then they posted online. So they recorded it and they posted online. And so Royal has not answered back on this, which I think is insane, because this was about a week ago that this came out. But the internet is calling for lifetime bans on the parents and the children, and a lot of people are calling for rules to actually be changed around who can have a balcony. So they're trying to say that if you have a child who is underage, so let's say under 18, you are not allowed to be booked into a balcony room. You have to be in an interior or an ocean view, because it lowers that risk. Now, maybe the parents weren't in the room, but again, this is on the parents as well. So, I mean, personally, I think a lifetime ban is great. I think that, they could have easily fallen over and died. I watched the video. And I think that maybe it's something that Royal really should fire back on and answer and say, hey, this is what we're doing. We have located them. We all know that there are cameras everywhere. They will be able to pinpoint whose room this is. And maybe they're just not saying something publicly. I don't know. But like, people are upset with the cruise lines and with the parents for this. So then we're going to move over to MSC. So MSC has opened up sailings for the summer of 2027 on the MSC Poesia in Alaska. So May 2026 will be the inaugural season for MSC in Alaska. But the Poesia will undergo the largest ship upgrade in cruise line's history before the 2027 season. The MSC World Cruise will now see a yacht club for the first time on its sailing in 2027 aboard the MSC Magnifica. And then the MSC Harmonia will debut in South Africa in the 2026 season. Virgin has been very light on news lately. So all they have right now is The Brilliant Lady. So it has officially debuted in Miami last Thursday. Yeah, last Thursday. They had a thing, or 2 Thursdays ago, I don't know. They had a thing where you could, as a first mate agent, you could go down and tour the ship for the day and then eat in one of the dining rooms. So I saw pictures of it, but we were traveling, so I wasn't able to make it, but it looked really cool. And then finally, Celebrity Cruise Line. So following suit with RCCL, Celebrity has canceled its stops to Haiti for 2025 and 2026. No surprise, Haiti is a mess right now. Once they try and get some stuff sorted out, hopefully we will see cruises back to Labadee, as it is absolutely beautiful. But for right now, for the safety of passengers, we are not going to see any cruises there anytime soon. Then Celebrity has officially taken delivery of the new Celebrity Excel and has announced the new sister ship for it, the Celebrity Excite. So that is our cruise news for the week. So for our tip for this week, it's always bring a small medical kit with you. Make sure you have your go-to things, like your preferred brand of pain reliever, small things like aloe for sunburns, band-aids, nausea meds. I always bring ginger mints with me because they help with any seasickness. Chapsticks, and sometimes the medical center will have these items easily available and for free, but sometimes they won't. So we had that recently when we were on our World America cruise. I had a killer migraine from being dehydrated and being out in the heat all day in San Juan. They did not have any naproxen. Thankfully, Captain Dan was smart enough, and he made a salt, lemonade, and water mixture and made me drink it. Did the trick. If not, we were going to be, or he was going to be, because he's very nice, walking down to the Walgreens at the end of the pier and getting me some naproxen. So make sure you bring these things with you, because if they don't have them, it's going to suck. And if you got like 3 sea days in a row, it's going to suck. So let's make sure you have them. So as always, I want to thank our sponsor, Starboard and Sunshine Vacations, where we've got you from port to paradise. Remember to tune in Wednesday for the latest edition of Tales from the Ship. So that's a wrap on this week's edition of the Weekly Helm Report. So whether you're sailing now or just watching from your inbox, thanks for joining me on this special edition. Keep your lanterns lit and your lifeboats ready. Next week's cruise news might be even more chilling. Until then, stay curious, stay cruising, and calm seas and clear skies.